what have you learned the most from being a part of the Board of Education in the past few years?
Well, in spite of any great preparation someone can bring, there's going to be a learning curve. I listened and watched other board members, and I learned how the dynamics of the public wanting to talk and what we have to do going around the district. Prior to getting on the board and prior to running, in addition to the volunteering I did in education and working with kids and sports and math and announcing and whatever it was, a booster parent for the choir, the thing that I did before that, I spoke up after a choir practice at my church once, and suddenly I was on the church council, and then the next year I became the president. A few years later, I became a set builder for my kids' theater group, and then they needed board members, and suddenly I found I was one of only 5 because several moved out of town. And I've just always stepped up. But with each of those organizations at the church, you know, some of the best holy wars some of the best wars in history are holy wars, you know, whether it's how to pour communion or, you know, the Reformation or Middle East tension. Churches have, you know, had their share of battles. I've weathered them. I've stayed calm amidst the fighting and the chaos and concern and anxiety. There was more drama off stage with parents in the theater organization than there was from kids on stage. And I had to sometimes mediate or just take into account, okay, I see these strong feelings, but I could stay calm and still look for what is the solution we need to find to solve the problem. That happens. That was the best preparation I could have had to be a board member. I've been battle tested. I've come to board meetings. There's a lot of times there's strong emotions. We've had to make difficult decisions with resources. We've had to make challenges to, you know, to people that were used to a system, and some of it was our initiation, some of it was state-driven, but no matter what, education is changing and expecting more accountability. Our whole economy, other than the traditional way of education, is built on a meritocracy, where the rarity of what you do and how well you do it is what determines your reward. I think that I want to continue to bring what I've learned. I think I've got another 4 years in me that I would like to keep advancing the initiatives and the direction of the Douglas County School District, and I'm offering that to the community based on not just that desire and my track record of that, but the track record of the district for the last 5 years. All these academic performances and growth of kids is going up, and that gets lost among a lot of the shuffle. That's a good thing, and we're going to continue to push that. So even with transitions and difficulties and bumps and struggles, the most important thing is that the kids are getting the education they deserve, and it's continuing to be excellent. And as long as that happens, I think we'll get through it. Every year that we continue moving in this new direction, more and more people, including teachers and parents, are actually on board and enjoying what we're doing. So I hope to take that to the voters, and on November 3rd, I hope they'll hope to keep Richardson, Larsen, and Robbins on the board and in the direction we're headed.
Okay. And one more question about, you keep saying a lot about how students have choice in this district, parents have choice, and teachers have choice. I know that it is currently right in the process, the whole thing with the voucher program. What exactly is your view on that?
I think it's another piece on the menu. It's not the most important thing in the history of education, but it is significant in that it reinforces that parents should be the ones that make the choice that's right for their child. We believe that this was based on a case that was heard at the U.S. Supreme Court in Cleveland, Ohio, the Zellman case. We modeled it after that. There was a different take given by the Colorado Supreme Court because of an amendment that was built into Colorado's Constitution. Well, it was actually an article in Colorado's Constitution, amendments in many other states. 37 states now have this thing called the Blaine Amendment. It's really, it'd be a great study in history class. It's an ugly part of history. I think that even if the Colorado Constitution was interpreted by this court to say one thing, and it was a split court. 3 of them said it was unconstitutional, 3 said it was not, and then the other one refused to even enter the fray and chose a statutory way to avoid the issue. But when I took the oath to uphold the Constitution, it was of the United States and Colorado and all the laws pertaining thereto. the United States Constitution supersedes the Colorado Constitution. If there's a conflict between the two, the United States Constitution is supposed to prevail. That is the question we're going to bring before the court and ask them to consider, and we're confident with that it's the right case. But we have a strong legal team, we have the Attorney General who agrees with us, and that when you really get down to the principles of what's right, it's not taking away any choice or jeopardizing the funding or the options for anyone who doesn't want this one small choice that's being offered to 500 kids out of 67,000. But why would the other 66,500 want to deny the 500 this opportunity? It doesn't seem, it's puzzling to me, and I think we should press ahead, and we're not implementing anything while it's in litigation. But if you ever stop, you don't stop at the first level of justice. If you've got resources and they're all privately funded, and you believe your cause is a righteous one, you take it to the next level until, at some point when the Supreme Court either doesn't take the case or it rules, we will abide by whatever that decision is.
And what would you say to opponents of it who state that, like, schools such as Regis High School or Valor High School shouldn't be on it just because of the whole idea of separation between church and state, and even though it's not tax dollars, still publicly funded money is going towards private.
A lot is made of the First Amendment and the separation of church and state, and you know what's really interesting? That whole concept, that whole phrase really became, we take it for granted, it dates all the way back, but it really became a common thing in this country in the 1940s due to some other issues. Thomas Jefferson, of course, wasn't around then to say it. He said it in the early 19th century when he was addressing the Danbury Baptist Church, and he used this phrase of a wall of separation. But you know what he did the following weekend? He went down to church just across down the street from the White House and attended services. So, and as a public official, he still did that. The First Amendment, which is one that's it's first in order, and it's often made by many considered the most important, well, I'd say the entire Constitution with its amendments is important, has two clauses. One says, and the one that gets a lot of attention is there shall be no establishment of a state religion clause. So the establishment clause gets cited a lot and is used in the separation of church and state. But often ignored is it also guarantees the free exercise thereof. And so as long as we're giving the money to the parent to choose the school that's right for the child, we've now broken that the government's involvement in picking schools or favoring schools or prohibiting certain schools. Our only requirements is that they be academically accredited, that they be financially viable, and that they adhere to the attendance and assessment requirements the state requires for funding. Beyond that, we should have no involvement. We are entirely neutral, and and that's what the heart of the Zellman case was, by putting that voucher in the hands of the parent to choose, and then the parents decide. We're not involved in it, and that's as it should be. That now it takes the government out of establishing or prohibiting the exercise of one's private beliefs.
Awesome. And I just have a quick question for both of you, because I forget who it was that said I think it was you who said, what are we going to cut Dr. Fagan's salary by? $60,000. That will be 0.1 point. Like on and on and on. Yeah. So $60,000 is a good estimate for like the average salary.
The average salary and benefits of a teacher is about $73,000. So it's almost, if you pick that increment, should her salary be reduced by that much to be fair or in line with what people want to have? Yes, that would fund one entire teacher, and we have 3,600 of them, and we have 7,000 employees. So I wanted to bring it up for some perspective and that's another analogy. It's one position out of how many. It's easy to get worked up and get in the emotion of that's the cost, but I wanted to put it. That's what I do sometimes when it's emotional and there's bombs flying around and a lot of thoughts going. Try to bring it down into what's the math, what's the real perspective, folks. If you want to haggle over that, it's like I said, 0.1% of our entire budget. That's not what's going to make a difference. But getting funding of $30 million more from the state so that we can actually fund what we should be able to do for kids, and it'll help us with maintenance and facility, but it will also help us keep your teachers' salaries even more competitive. And that, I think, will be of benefit to the kids.
Okay, and like off of that, putting price into perspective, kind of, Douglas County is one of the wealthiest districts, but there are districts like, I know Cleveland, Ohio, the average teacher's salary is like over $100,000. So is it at all a thing to raise teacher salaries in this district, considering the success rate of this teachers?
Well, in Cleveland, when they raise the salaries, they do it for everyone, not differentiating which ones are the most effective. So one of the candidates even brought up, I think it was Mr. Ray, said, well, there was a referendum or a ballot measure a few years ago, and one of the components in it was if we did it, this would pass having resources to differentiate pay more. Because it didn't pass doesn't mean it wasn't the right thing to do. In fact, it's even more important to do so. When you've got scarce resources, this is an economics class term, right? You know, anyone's taking econ. When you have scarce resources, the way you get the best result is to allocate them to the things that are going to matter the most. And so I want more pay to go to the teachers we want to retain and encourage and hold up as examples and want them to stay here for you. And we're going to allocate less in raises to the ones that, hey, some of them have potential and may grow into it, and we want to encourage that. But for those that's not going to happen, they may find that a different profession or a different district is the better place. And that's what you do when, I mean, if I wanted to get all the things I wanted for my home or my family and I had an unlimited supply of money, yeah, we probably have a lot of different choices, but we live in the reality of what do we want, so we pick our priorities. What's more important? A family vacation to a new place in the world, or is it me getting a brand new car? Those are decisions we make all the time, and I think as a district, that's what we also do.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.